Welcome to Trudge the Road. We're your hosts. I'm Rich, a recovered drug addict.
My name is Jerry, and I'm a sober alcoholic.
And we want to thank a couple of new affiliates this week. The Great 98 WTRG in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, and 3WD, that's WWWD, in Emporia, Virginia.
Home of Elliott Sadler, one of my favorite NASCAR drivers.
Well, good morning to all the Sadler family.
Yes, they're all there.
And hopefully they're listening this morning as well. Also, big thanks to our sponsor this week, livefrogged.com. Livefrogged.com. Frog standing for firmly relying on God's grace every day.
This is a wonderful site dedicated to ladies who suffer from breast cancer. It has some answers to your questions, some suggestions, and some help, and we're honored that they're here with us on Trudge the Road.
Absolutely, and you can buy a really cool T-shirt as well, as I have for myself and my wife. This morning in this first segment, we do have Dr. Joe coming up in just a little bit. We're also going to talk about patience later on. Not patience in the doctor sense, but patience and having some patience.
I want patience, and I want it right now.
But right now, we're going to talk about addiction and just how powerful addiction is. And Jerry, you have a great analogy. I've heard you tell it before, but I think it's something that needs to be retold, for one thing. And again, it is somewhat graphic.
It's
but
scary.
It's very powerful.
Well, the disease of addiction is very scary. It is a disease. It's not a moral issue. It's not a character issue. It is a disease. It has a pathology. It's recognized by the American Medical Association as a disease and as a fatal disease. And and I don't mean to be too graphic, but I want to put a mental picture in your head of what it is when you are an alcoholic, what you're saying when you're admitting, yes, I have this disease of addiction. And what that is, if you can imagine a .357 Magnum pointed right to the temple of your head, the hammer is cocked back, your finger is on the trigger, and it is going to go off. This is a fatal disease. Now, what we do within the recovering community, one step at a time, is we get that hammer cocked back, we get that finger off the trigger, we get the gun away from your head, we get it on the table, and we slide it away from you. I did that a long, long time ago, but the gun's still there. You know, I can slide it back. That's relapse. And I think that's important to understand, that relapse does not begin when we start drinking again. We've resumed drinking at that point. The relapse happened previously. I kept grabbing that gun again and again. And the relapse method is in between my ears. That's where it's happening. I drive by the liquor store. I look at it and I think, phew, maybe if I just took it easy this time. Well, I just grabbed the gun. You know, I just slid it towards me. Coming home from work, you know, I look at the liquor store again and think, maybe I'll just get a pint, you know. Well, you just pick the gun up. This is the relapse process. You're in relapse. The next day on the way to work, you think, well, I'll just do it for the weekend. You know, you cocked the gun. All right, now on your way home from work that afternoon, you buy the alcohol. Boom, you just put that gun right to your head. You go home, you pour it in a glass, and you take it in take a drink. Your finger just went back on the trigger. It's simply now just a matter of time before it goes off. That's why we continue our recovery. It's a continuous basis, one day at a time. And fortunately for us, following the steps, it's been a number of years since we've even had to pull that gun close to us. And that's because of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. There is a solution to this issue there. There is definitely a solution to the dilemma that we face, and that's finding another power by which we can live. Because let's face it, looking at our record, it hasn't gone too well doing it our way. So this is simply another way. And the goal doesn't change. Now, addicted people are going to understand this absolutely. And for you folks who aren't addicted, maybe this will possibly let you understand us a little bit better. The party was over a long time ago. All we were really looking for in those last few years or few months, however long of using, was just a minute of peace, just a little peace of mind, just to let that monster inside of my head settle down a little bit, so just for a second I could breathe. And it doesn't change in the recovering community. That we're still looking for the exact same thing, that peace of mind. It's just a different way. Our way didn't work. It just didn't work. We did our best, and the results were terrible. So we do it another way, but the outcome is the same. Peace of mind. And that's really what we're looking for. And that's what we use in all these substances to provide for us. Just a moment of peace. That's the difference between an addicted person and somebody who is not. Matt, for example, our producer, he can go out and have a few drinks and enjoy himself, relax, and then maybe find the window of conviviality. For us, that's impossible. We can't, because we can't find that perfect little peace of mind. If we get close to it, we always go overboard and do too much. Didn't work for us. Didn't work at all. And that's okay. It is okay. This way, the 12-step way, it absolutely works. And what it is a blueprint for living. You know, the word alcohol is mentioned only one time in the 12 steps. It's a new way of life that provides for you what you've been looking for in the dope and in the bottle, and that's peace of mind. We have it here for you.
Well, it's funny because you mentioned Matt, and we were talking to Matt before we started recording this morning, and we were saying, well, you know, he had gone to bed, and he'd come in, and he'd set up the equipment and stuff, and said, you know, that's the difference between you and us, is that we'd still be drinking.
Exactly.
I'd be setting my drink in my cup holder as I pulled into the parking lot back in the day when I came in, or I would have been on a 3 or 4 day high, because that's the way I did it. You know, it's the same thing when I was drinking. I could not just have a drink. I could not have 2 drinks. And my famous saying, at least in my little world, was, what's the point? What's the point in having a drink or 2?
Don't understand that.
You're either all in or you're not in at all. I mean, that's the way I looked at it. And every day I would come home, and during my drinking days, I would stop and get a 12-pack of beer, and I would get a bag of hot and spicy pork rinds so I could get the beer in me quicker.
I know that routine.
And I would walk to the liquor store after that to go get me another 12-pack. So I was working about a case a day. Now, in my drug days, when I'm doing the coke and I'm doing the crystal meth, and God knows that went on way too many years, is that I didn't just do a line. And even if I just did a line or I just smoked a bowl, that would continue for 3, 4, sometimes 5 days. And I was pretty crazy by day 5.
Oh, yeah. You know, just as soon as we do it, the first thought is more.
But back to what you were saying, and when you were talking about driving by the liquor store and you got that 357, that's the way it was for me every single time. I would come down, I would sleep for 3 or 4 days, I would start feeling good, and then my mind in my head would start thinking about the drug dealer. I'd drive past the drug neighborhood.
Right, there it goes.
And immediately...
You've relapsed.
Yeah, I'm already relapsing in my head, and you had said you're looking for that peace of mind. That was the only thing that would calm my insides, because inside I'm... You know, starting to think, and I'm starting to get that Jonesy feeling, like, oh, man, what's going to settle this?
Jones, let me give an explanation for the folks who are not addicted. People who are will understand this. Jones is, you want some more of this. It's much more serious with us, and this is an absolute fact. An addicted person at the level we are, and at the level some of you may be, when our brain demands more, it's a demand, and how it works is it tells you consciously that if you don't get this drug or this alcohol, you're going to die. You're going to die. You are going to die. And that is the message that we're going to get. Now, if you can imagine just like being in a pool, and you can't breathe, you're just going to do everything you possibly can to get to the top of that water and get a breath of fresh air, because you'll be okay when you get that air. It's the same thing with us. It's going to be okay. When we get that drink or we get that drug, it's going to be okay, because sober, it is not.
That's a great analogy. The pool analogy?
Yeah.
That's the first time I heard that.
And it's about when we relapse, if you look at it that way. Let's say there's a swimming pool. You're in a pool, and all of a sudden, I forgot how to swim, And what are you going to do? Are you just going to go down to the bottom? No, there's other people hopefully there who are going to save you, and all you really have to do, put your hand out. Somebody pull me up. That's what we do in AA. If you relapse, if you fall back in that pool, you're down at the bottom and you can't breathe. All you have to do is get your hand to the top. We'll grab you. We'll pull you out. We'll help you. We'll protect you. We'll love you. We'll care for you and get you back on track with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know what that water is? You know what that water is you're drowning in? Fear. That's fear. It's a pool of fear. That's what it is for us when we relapse, we drink, we sober up a moment, we get so frightened that we drink again, and that's what that water is. Will pull you out of that.
Now, somebody's going to ask you and say, fear, if somebody's listening for the first time, say, what, fear of what? What are you talking about?
It is part of the pathology of this disease. It is everybody who is addicted has such a pathologically disoriented level of fear that is so magnified that it tells us what to do, how to act, and that we're afraid of everything. And I firmly believe that this should not be called the disease of addiction. I think it should be called the disease of fear, and alcohol and drugs are my medicine.
No, it's a great point, because a lot of my addiction was rooted in fear, just like everybody's. But it was the fear of going out. It was the fear of social situations. It was the fear of talking to a girl. It was the fear of of having to answer the phone. I mean,
Oh,
I still have that.
Yeah. Oh, the
stupid fear.
mail. Yeah.
Yeah, opening the mail. There might be a bill in there.
Let me give you a perfect example, man. We were talking about this in a meeting the other day, and back to, I guess, probably junior high school, and we had the sock hops. You know, I'm kind of dating myself there a little bit.
Sock hops?
The sock hops, the little dances.
Okay, then.
Yeah. And, the girls kind of stand on one side and the boys on the other. What is this, 8th grade, and you'd have a dance. Well, talk about a wallflower. I mean, I was so glued to that wall, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to. You know why? She might say no. She might say no, and I can't take that, Richard. So I just stand there, even though I want to. I hate it. I'm just frightened all the time of rejection. And then all of a sudden I'm not attractive. I'm overweight. I don't fit in. I'm not good enough. And those lies that we continually tell ourselves become a reality, even at a very young age. Okay, now I'm going to take you a year later to that same sock hop. Now I'm in the 9th grade. And I had a 6-pack in me. Well, I want to tell you, I could have been on Dancing with the Stars. I was little Fred Astaire out there just dancing with everybody, And I firmly remember folks saying, Jerry's kind of coming out of his shell now, isn't he? Well, I should say he was, And what alcohol worked. It worked. I was able to ask Betty Jo to dance with me. I was able to get out there and look great, in my opinion. I smiled. I laughed. I'd found the solution. This alcohol worked for me. It took away that fear. Do you all kind of see what it's like?
Yeah, it made me engaging. It made me funny. It made me confident.
Yeah.
It made me everything that I wanted to be in my head.
Just before it almost killed you.
Exactly. And thank God I found my way into an NA meeting.
I was living on the streets of Louisville, Kentucky with absolutely nothing. In a tree. That was my home, 4th and Oak. You can go there. It's a seedless ash. It's still there. I visit. And I was still looking for that same buzz that I had back in the 9th grade, asking Betty Jo to dance with me. I still was trying to capture that feeling again. How many years later, and thinking, this time it'll work, this time it'll work. It just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, till frankly, the drugs and alcohol didn't work, and I was just dying. And there's millions of us in this country right now, today, at this moment, dying from this disease. And this is why we do Trudge the Road, hopefully to answer some questions and do our best to bring you some solutions. Look at us sober and clean all these years. He was a hopeless dope fiend. I'm sorry, dude, but Rich was a hopeless dope fiend.
Yes, I was.
And I was a written off alcoholic. Just die. Go find your place in the alley and drop dead. And that's like 2% of alcoholics get to that point. But we think all of them are, and all drug addicts live on the streets. No, 98% are in the burbs, man. They're in great houses, and they're doing, socially maybe just fine on the outside. That's where addiction is. It is everywhere in America. And if you think that picture of that street drunk and that street dope fiend is what addiction is, you are wrong. It's the people who are living on your block. It's the people who are going to your church. It is the people who you work with. And I'm telling you right now, and you know it out there, if you don't have this disease, just think, how many people are you exposed to who do? Relatives, friends, coworkers, somebody. And you know what? Now you know a little bit more about this disease, and that's a beautiful thing. And if we can get that message out so people understand a little bit more that this is a disease, it is a disease that has a real moral dilemma attached to it. I'm not going to say that it doesn't. It does. But the Alcoholics Anonymous 12 steps, as well as NA, provide a solution not only to our own behavior and how that we can deal with it in a positive and effective way, but also how we can make amends for the wreckage we caused. And when you do that, you begin this spiritual journey. And that's what this is, trudging the road to a happy destiny. Trudge, the word trudge, it means to walk with dignity and purpose. Dignity and purpose. I didn't walk with dignity and purpose to a happy destiny. I crawled to the damn liquor store, pardon my language, but that's what I did. I crawled to the liquor store. You crawled to the dope man. That was our journey. And now our journey is to a happy destiny. We owe it to these 12 steps. Look at our own sociology. Look at our friends. Matt, the producer over there, not addicted, and we have a relationship, I think that, and with everybody in our sociology, that is so much deeper and so much more meaningful. And so much of it is because the lies are gone. We quit lying. And that's part of the pathology of this disease. My mother used to say it to girls I date. She'd go, there's a cute little thing Jerry does that he always does that'll tell you he's lying. And they would go, "What's that?" And she'd say, "His lips are moving." Mother! And she was right. She had my number, God bless her, so many years ago, but she also had this disease. She had it too. And but I'm not saying she wasn't a great mom, because she was, And I just I give so much credit to the greatest generation. We're baby boomers, who didn't really have as many advantages to get clean and sober as we did. And they were tough, man. My folks, I mean, they drank themselves to death, but they still provided and still were parents. And that was wonderful, because in my case, that wasn't at all the issue. I was long gone alone, living on the streets.
Well, they used to say, "Rich will never tell the truth where a lie will fit," and that was pretty much my mantra for many years, is that I just couldn't tell the truth about anything.
Exactly. And today, we have friends who I think would use the word trust.
Absolutely.
Honesty,
Yes.
people who come to us not necessarily for issues of addiction, just because they know they can trust us. And
that's important, and it's a great thing to carry around. It's a great asset, and I go out of my way these days to make sure that I'm truthful, no matter how painful it is to say it at times.
Oh, listen, that is so true. There's no gray area with you.
Well, I mean,
and I understand. And that is how you stay honest. It's just rigorous honesty in your case, and I admire that.
Yeah, anybody who wants a truthful email can feel free to email us. We're at recoveryforlifechannel.com. We've had that question a couple of times. People wanted to know how to get in touch with us.
Oh, yeah.
Recoveryforlifechannel.com is our website, and there you will find Jerry's email. You'll find my email. Dr. Joe's on there. Matt, the producer's on there as well. This is Trudge the Road. This week, it is brought to you by LiveFrogged.com, firmly relying on God's grace every day. That's livefrog.com. They are a great website. They have some great T-shirts on there, and a portion of the proceeds from every T-shirt sold goes to women with breast cancer. Coming up, Dr. Joe. Also, we're going to talk about patience.
I want patience, and I want it right now.
Not the Guns N' Roses song, but patience in just a little bit, right here on Trudge the Road.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Dr. Joe joins Jerry to talk about addiction and compulsive lying. That's on the way next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Trudge the Road. My name is Jerry. I'm a sober alcoholic, along with my partner, Rich, who is a recovered drug addict. And this program is dedicated to people who suffer from the disease of addiction to drugs and alcohol, and ever as important, family and friends. And our goal here is to provide you some answers to the many, many questions that we know you have, and we will do our best to provide some solutions to this incredible dilemma of the disease of addiction. Part of our program, and it's a huge part, is Dr. Joseph Troncalli. He joins us again. Dr. Joe is a physician. He is not addicted to drugs or alcohol, and one of the few who has decided to help folks like us. And we are a tough group of people to deal with. That's no question. I'm living proof of that. Dr. Troncalli, thank you for being here.
Nice to be here.
Back in the segment here a few minutes ago, we left in an area of pre-contemplative behavior of an alcoholic, somebody who doesn't really know or admit or want to that they are at that stage. If you would just bring us a little bit up to date on what is the pre-contemplative state, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. As I said last time, Prochaska and DiClemente were two psychologists who came up with this hypothetical construct about pre-contemplation, contemplation, and that sort of thing. There's various stages of change that people go through, and it doesn't have to be just with alcoholism or addiction. It's just behavior in general. But in any case, back to alcoholism, addiction, if someone is pre-contemplative, that just means that they do not see at all that they have a problem. They're the people that will, again, like we've talked about before, they'll be drug in by the police, or their families will say, you've got to stop doing this. You're breaking up the family. You're ruining your job, etc. Employers go crazy with these people, all that sort of stuff. So these are people who clearly don't get it. They don't see it. And these are the people that cause families, generally speaking, the most problem, because what are you supposed to do? You can't talk to them about it because they don't agree that this is a problem. You can't try to help them because they don't need help, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. They don't need anybody and they don't need anything. They just want to keep doing whatever it is they're doing, despite the fact that they're like a tornado and leaving a path of destruction in their wake. So these are dark times for people. And so if there's anybody out there listening right now who's got a relative or a spouse or a child or anybody in your family that's in this pre-contemplative stage, we just want to say to you right now that we recognize that this is a very, very difficult, tough time for you. But there's hope. And the reason that there's hope is that, as we always say in Al-Anon, which is the part of Alcoholics Anonymous for people who have relatives or spouses who are in active addiction, one of the things that we always believe that we can do for people and give them hope is that you can change yourself and you can change the situation yourself, even if the other person doesn't change. Now, you can say, well, that's strange or weird because I don't see there's any way anything's going to change unless he or she stops drinking. Well, look, you don't have to suffer alone. What we want to try to help you do is understand, first of all, the process. And so that's why we're going to talk about this pre-contemplative stuff. And then we want to try to get you some help.
If I give you an example of what my thinking was at that time, and maybe you can, as a physician, note the craziness. If I could use Matt as an example, and let's say that Matt drank too much, and he's our producer, he's not addicted, and got a DUI, and I also that night got a DUI. Matt and I would be both sitting in the drunk tank, and he would say, "Why did I have that fifth beer?" And I would say, "Why did I take Prince Street?" Do you follow?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You're on two different complete wavelengths. In other words, Matt is able to, in this case, access his logical system. If you're in your drug or alcohol addiction, then what you consider logical is that everybody else is wrong. And to you, that's perfectly logical, which obviously is sort of messed up, but that's the way you're thinking.
It is. I mean,
it's very real.
Oh,
and
it's
again,
real.
We've talked about this before too. You could take a lie detector test at that point.
Pass it.
Yes, you would say, it wasn't my fault. I was just on Prince Street, or I was on the wrong street, or I was the
Unlucky.
cops were waiting
the
for
cop
me.
was waiting on me. I know
Right,
it. Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. And this is what drives families crazy, because they're trying to have a logical conversation about this. They're trying to do something logical to try to solve the problem. And so what codependents, or family members of alcoholics and addicts, as we call them in Al-Anon, is they're the chronic problem solvers. They're the people that always have to fix things all the time, because if they don't fix everything, then things seem to fall apart all the time. So they're the ones bailing people out of jail. They're the ones making excuses for the person who's messing up at work. They're the person who's cutting the grass because the alcoholic's passed out on the couch, or
Right.
You name it, and the codependent's doing it.
Right. Cover me, cover me, cover me.
That's it. And so what we're trying to help people with is that at some point every codependent burns out and they just say, I can't do this anymore.
I know.
Now, once they get to that place, it can be as another crisis. In other words, a lot of people just say, I've had it, I'm out of here. And so this just causes more disruption.
Sure.
So they're not doing it logically themselves. They're just saying, this is it, I'm done. And so this is when divorces happen. This is when households break up. This is when crazy things happen.
You've been sucked into the vortex of the addiction yourself.
Right. And so it's important for people who are codependent to understand that they have a lizard brain just like the alcoholic does. And while codependent is out there cutting the grass, paying the fines, doing all this sort of stuff, that's their craziness. Now, they don't see it as craziness. They see it as survival. And in some ways, they may be a little bit more logical, or they're working with the system sort of more than the alcoholic addict is, but it's still kind of crazy behavior. Because if you took somebody off the street who wasn't, for instance, related to the alcoholic or the addict, if something like that happened and they saw somebody laying on the couch and they were supposed to cut the grass, they'd say, hey, you're not doing, you're
Right.
50% of this, or you're not doing what you should do. And so they would confront that person because that would be a logical thing to do. But the codependent has gotten far beyond the whole aspect of trying to negotiate with the alcoholic, because they know that there's no negotiation possible. They've given up on that.
You're going to lose the fight with me.
Right. There's not going to be any fight anymore because we're done fighting.
Right.
And so it's sort of like bad marriages. If you read family systems literature about marriages that are in trouble, at some point, marriages go from conflict to silence to I give up. And so really codependency in relationships and that sort of thing is a lot like a marriage. In other words, you're trying to have a relationship with somebody, but you can only have a relationship. Well, first of all, you can't have a relationship with an active alcoholic or an addict.
No.
And so if I didn't tell anybody anything else on this program, this is one thing I would like everybody to hear is that if somebody's in their active addiction, you can't have a relationship with them that's meaningful, okay, while they're active in their addiction. And so as soon as you sort of give up on that, then it helps you actually move to a different place in the whole relationship system. Now, that doesn't mean, again, that you should get a divorce or anything like that. I want to be really careful about this. What I just want you to understand is that if somebody's drunk, you're not going to have a logical conversation with them. If they're high, you're not going to have a logical conversation with them. And even when they get sober, if they're still active in their addiction, once they sober up and that sort of thing, you still can't have a very logical conversation with them because they basically don't believe that they have a problem. That's all that pre-contemplative stuff.
All right, well, let's talk about my ability to communicate at this stage and the fact of the matter, and it seems to be, and explain if tell me if I'm wrong, the pathology, I lie. I lied about everything. I lied when it was telling the truth was just as easy, and you've used the word pathological, and it just seems to be part of every alcoholic. We lie.
It's just part of the lizard brain behavior. In other words, I can tell you something that's absolutely true, and let's just say you were drunk last night, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
No, I wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
No, I wasn't. And so it's clearly a lie. It's clearly not something that jives with the facts, all that sort of stuff. But again, and this is very hard for people to understand who are not alcoholics or addicts, but the alcoholic really believes that he wasn't drunk or she wasn't drunk last night. And so while they're pathologically lying, they're not pathologically lying to themselves. And that's very, very, very difficult to discern or to understand or to even believe. Now, does that mean that addicts and alcoholics always believe their lies? No, they can lie just like everybody else too.
Get out of trouble or whatever. Yeah,
so they can lie when they know they're lying, but they also can lie when they don't even think they're lying. I mean, they just have a complete distortion of reality, and so it's very important that you understand you're talking to somebody who is sort of operating in a cartoon world. And it's not a funny cartoon, it's a very dark cartoon, but they're making up their own reality as they go along. I don't know if you ever saw the Saturday Night Live Pathologic Liar.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah.
Let's see, I'm the president of I'm the president of IBM, and that sort of thing. And so that works. That the Pathologic Liar on Saturday Night Live, it worked for that person. He thought it was working for him. But the point is that he actually talks himself into the reality.
Well, I love it. And this is really embarrassing to admit, but it's the truth. I would become somebody else. I'll give you an example. I used to work in broadcast sports, and so we traveled a lot, and I drank a lot, and every time I was on an airplane sitting next to a stranger, I was somebody else. I hate to admit that. And I don't know if I was believing it myself or I was just exaggerating, but it made me feel good to be a lawyer from Denver, rather than the flunky on the sports team, or doctor, of course, was the best. I'm sorry, man, but that was kind of me. That was years ago.
Yeah, but see, again, that's a perfect example of where you were in your head. Now, again, if we could deconstruct that and psychoanalyze you, Jerry. Which would be very different. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is that the reason that you did that is that somewhere in there's a lot of shame and guilt. There was a lot of like, I don't want to be who I am kind of thing, or I would like to be more important than I think I am, or whatever. You're just dissatisfied generally with yourself. And I think that that's part of the deal of every alcoholic addict, that they're not really satisfied with who they are. They see that life somehow has dealt them a bad hand or something along those lines. But that's the hole in the soul that we talk about many times with alcoholics, addicts. They really and truly feel empty.
Let me get your response on this. Is that, at a point in my life, I had achieved the American dream. We have the 3-bedroom rancher with a single car garage, and it was in a nice neighborhood. It parked down the street. There was a Toyota in the driveway and a couple of bucks in the bank. I mean, isn't that the American dream, to have something like that?
Sure.
And to me, that house is too small. We're in the wrong neighborhood. That car sucks. I wanted a 9-bedroom house, oceanfront, and a Ferrari. I needed that, and it had to be in a particular. That it wasn't just in my mind; it was in my heart that I had to have that. But if you put some alcohol in me for a minute, I was perfectly content with what I had.
Well, and see, again, they talk about this all the time in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, that there's a disease of discontentment. In other words, you're never content until you medicate it in some way. And so everything that you've already talked about, whether it's trying to be somebody different, trying to live someplace different, trying to have a bigger this, whatever, all of that is rooted in this discontentment of the alcoholic. And see, again, the lizard brain is chronically discontent. It's always looking for more booze, more food, more dope, more sex, more this, more that. And it doesn't matter what it is, that's what you're always doing. And if you could, be a fly on the wall in my office when I'm working with alcoholics or addicts and that sort of thing, again, it's a chronic discontent. It's chronic. You don't understand, doctor.
Oh, yeah.
It's chronic. If you only knew what my life was like. In other words, nobody has suffered like I suffer.
I'm sure they looked you right in the eyes and said that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, they believe what they're telling me.
I know.
And see, again, if you're a family member and not a doctor and hearing this, then you start doubting yourself, you start feeling shame or guilt and that sort of thing. Now, I have the luxury of just being able to laugh at them,
right?
And saying, okay, yeah, you're right. I don't understand. I've only done this for 20 years. But anyway, but see, that takes a lot of training, honestly, to be able to do that.
Sure.
But if you're in an emotional relationship with somebody and they're chronically discontent, then that doesn't feel very good if you're a family member, or worse, if you're a child, whatever. How many people get raised by an alcoholic parent or something and they can never please their parent? Well, they can't please their parent because the parent is never pleased ever.
Yeah, I understand. I completely understand. We've got so much more to talk about, and we'll have to talk about my gratitude and how I had to change and learn the attitude of gratitude and being really grateful for all the things that I've got. And that's part of the program of recovery that you'll find within Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. Dr. Joe Troncalli, as always, you are the best. Thank you so very much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Jerry.
Your expertise is wonderful. And thank you all so very much for this episode of Trudge the Road. You'll be able to find us at recoveryforlifechannel.com. You can email Dr. Joe, Rich, or myself, Matt, the producer. We would really love to hear from you. There's no question about that. In the meantime, I'm Jerry, sober alcoholic, and this has been Trudge the Road.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Rich and Jerry discuss patience, something neither one of them has. It's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
Welcome back to Trudge the Road, brought to you this week by livefrogged.com. Firmly relying on God's grace every day. livefrog.com. They have some cool t-shirts on there, and proceeds, a portion of the proceeds from every t-shirt you buy from livefrog.com go to help women with breast cancer.
It's a terrific website, terrific folks. God bless you. Thanks for helping us out.
Yeah, we're your hosts. I'm Rich, a recovered drug addict.
My name is Jerry. I'm a sober alcoholic, and this show is all about people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol, as well as their family and friends. And we hope to bring you some answers to questions and hopefully some solutions. Included today will be Dr. Joseph Troncalli, a great doctor, absolutely understands this disease, and he can make it easy to understand from a medical perspective, and he'll be along here shortly on Trudge the Road.
This segment, we're going to talk about patience.
Patience. I want it, and I want it right now.
That's pretty much it. I mean, patience, they say, is the companion of wisdom. And that would mean that we're not very wise.
Well, you look at your record, look at your record, look at your record.
And I think this is something that every day we have to go through. And you don't have to be an addicted person to deal with patience issues, but it is just exacerbated, I think, when you are an addicted person. Everything has to be right now. Everything has to be yesterday. And sometimes you really just need to go back and reevaluate the situation and maybe cut yourself a little bit of slack. I mean, I am one of those people that it's got to happen right now. If you told me that it's going to happen, and if it doesn't happen, I want to know why it didn't happen. And I've had to actually retrain myself, in my sober life to try to back down a little bit. And don't throw me that look, because I know
All right. Yeah.
it is a work in progress.
You're getting better. Yeah.
I do. I really try to detach myself and give it time to work through the process, which is not always easy to do.
I'll have Dr. Joe absolutely. I think we define patience with us differently. It's really, the definition of patience is you're not doing it my way. That's what it really boils down to, because I want to be in control. I want to direct this play, this life, and you're not doing it right. You're not doing it my way. And also, if Dr. Joe, he'll look at me and I'll get a crusty for bringing this up because it's euphoric recall, but I'm going to give you an example of when we could be patient and how we could be patient. Christmas time, many, many years ago, waiting for the blow. And I'm not talking about the snow that comes out of the sky.
Sure.
Cocaine, and the cocaine is coming, but you're going to have to wait a little while. Well, in that wait process, all of a sudden, I'm faced with patience, but, there's a carrot dangling at the end, and I was able to do that. And sometimes I can feel it right now is that thought that it's coming, and I'm sure there's some brain chemistry taking place at this time. And then when you find out that all this patience, this time you've waited to hear from the dope man, the phone rings, I've got it. It's there. Boom. You're feeling it right now. Oh my God, they've got it. It's just almost like the high. Finding out that I'm going to go get it, getting into the car, driving over there, going up to the dope man, just so excited, and making the transaction and actually receiving it, I think probably is one of the biggest parts of that feeling that we're looking for, that euphoria. And for us, that's the only time we can look at and say, patience. Let me tell you about what great patience I've got. I wait on the dope man sometimes 2-3 days, but I won't stand in line at the grocery store and not get mad because you can't cash a check. So you're not doing it my way. It's not patience. You're not doing it what I want.
Well, we need to remind ourselves we're often moving to the beat of a different drummer, a very fast drummer sometimes. And sometimes we just need to sync up with the rest of the world, as difficult as that is. And finding sync with the rest of the world really is a true definition of patience. But what I want to ask you is how does patience tie into the addicted person?
Well, I want what I want when I want it. That's addiction. I want what I want when I want it. It's a process of change, and that process comes through working the 12 steps. I think when you can recognize your impatience and the consequences of it, and that's going to come in the 4th step, it's going to be a complete reality. Knowing how impatience has so directly and negatively affected your life because it has exasperated itself behaviorally will become very evident. And as you process through the rest of the steps, a solution will come. But just like any virtue, it's a learned thing. You've got to try it. And they say in the rooms of AA, don't pray for patience because you'll get a lesson in it. And all of a sudden, you find yourself standing in the line at the grocery store, and it's moving at a snail's pace, and you just this is a complete waste of my time. Plus, I'm standing here to give them money. But what I have done is just kind of turn that around and realize that there's 2 things I can do here right now. One is pray. And it's a great opportunity to make a real close connection to that power today, which provides me an opportunity to live, because I've got nothing else to do but stand there. So why not make it that time to communicate with God as I choose to understand him, which is a very loving Father who loves me unconditionally, by the way. So that's wonderful. Plus, there's another aspect of it. It kind of gives you an opportunity to watch the parade of reality that surrounds you. And there's some very interesting characters within our culture. And you can observe the impatience in others. And when you see that, it will almost become humorous. And you'll say, was I like that? was that me? You know, I have changed. How did this happen? It's part of your spiritual experience. Now, when Dr. Joe gets here a little bit later, we're going to talk a little bit about how those 12 steps kind of, in the spirituality and religion, if you will, kind of all come together. And that's the huge part of this, because our dilemma is we don't have a power by which we can live. We've done that by ourselves, and we have to discover a new power by which to live. And that's a power. You can choose any kind of power you want. I choose to call that power God. And again, as a father, loving me unconditionally and doing anything he can to help me along the way so I can be healthy, happy, and prosper. But I have a significant role in this. And if I don't do my part, he can't do his. It's as simple as that. So when I do my part, he certainly does his. And look at it today. I'm living proof. Dr. Joe could tell you statistically that as an alcoholic of my nature, my chances of being alive today at my age are 0. And so what more do you need if you're looking for proof?
What do you got to lose?
What do you got to lose? Yeah, what do you got to lose? Give it a try. One thing, if you come into the recovering community, you're going to meet some incredible people. And what you'll feel when you get there, what you'll feel, you won't be able to define it or translate it, is for the first time in your life, you're surrounded by a group of people who absolutely understand your pain. We understand your pain. You see, society doesn't look at the pain that we suffer, only the pain we cause. And it is there. We do cause pain. And there is a place within the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous to make amends for that behavior. But we understand your pain. We know how you hurt. We know how you feel. We know where your personality is. You know, it's simply this. You either know elation, anxiety, or despair. You know, we've been through this before. I got the dope. Oh, I'm so excited. The dope's running out. Oh, anxiety. The dope is gone. Despair. There's only one thing that cures despair, and that is that elation. And if you want to find out how that works, it's called the lizard brain. Dr. Joseph Troncalli. It's on our website at recoveryforlifechannel.com if you want to read about it. And certainly if you want to hear about it, we'll ask him again. But that's what we are. And it's just those 3 emotions we're functioning on. And we understand that when you get there, and we have a plan. It's a blueprint for living, for you to be able to break out of that cycle and begin to live one day at a time in a healthy manner. And what's going to come out of it is a beautiful person who has patience, who has time to be able to pray, who has the ability to understand that there is a wonderful life that is surrounded by them. Open your eyes and see it. It's a beautiful journey. See yourself and other people and see how far you've come. Let the people in the recovering community tell you how far you've come, because they'll see it before you. They'll also see when you're in danger. And we can do that. Sponsorship, we had that talk last week, I believe, and we'll have it again, how important that is. If you're coming into AA or NA, get somebody who knows the road to help guide you along, okay?
All right. Well, and help you with patience, which is our topic for the segment.
And you'll learn it, you know, because this is one day at a time. It's a virtue that does take a little bit of effort, but as I said, when it pays off, what a great opportunity it is.
If you'd like to reach out to any of us, all you have to do is go to our website, recoveryforlifechannel.com. You were talking about the lizard brain being up there, but that's also the website where you can find our email addresses if you'd like to email myself, Rich, or Jerry, or Dr. Joe, or even Matt the producer.
Matt the producer, he rocks.
Yeah, he's the guy that keeps the level straight and keeps us on time.
He's in charge of everything.
Yeah, so you could email him as well, but that's recoveryforlifechannel.com. You mentioned Dr. Joe. He is coming up here next. This segment, as well as the show, brought to you by livefrogged.com, firmly relying on God's grace every day. Great website, great cause, helping women with breast cancer. That's livefrogged.com. For Jerry, I'm Rich. This is Trudge the Road.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up next, Jerry continues discussing patience with Dr. Joe, and we find out patience is not one of his virtues either. That's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Trudge the Road. I'm a sober alcoholic named Jerry, and with me is Dr. Joe Troncalli. Dr. Joe, thank you very much for being here.
Hi, Jerry.
Joe is a physician. He is not addicted, and one of the few physicians who took, and I'll never know how, an interest in folks like us, and has done so much because you do understand the disease and the process of bringing a solution to it. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. It's just invaluable.
It's great to be here.
We were talking about patience, and you were in the other booth there and listening to us, and man, I thought, oh, he knows the answer to that.
I was feeling very impatient because I really wanted to jump in. If we had had more microphones,
Well, all right.
I would have been right there.
My definition is not impatience. It's you're not doing it my way or you're not doing it for me. And I'm defining this, of course, as an alcoholic.
Well, I mean, I can tell a story from this morning. I was coming actually from church to come here to do the show, and there was somebody driving in front of me going 25 in a 45 zone,
Right.
and they were either clearly lost or just sightseeing or whatever they were doing, but I needed to be here. And all I could think about is that I'm about to make a show telling people that they need to be patient. And I was gripping the wheel and just about to drive them off the road and flash my lights and honk my horn and that sort of thing. And to top it all off, they got to the one red light between me and here, and they stopped in the green. It was green, and they stopped. And so I knew that I was in serious trouble. But the point about the whole thing is just that it only takes 1 second. This is the whole essence of addiction and the lizard brain and the whole thing. I mean, all I had to do was get behind that truck, and all I had to do was get slowed down because I needed to be here, and my other whole personality took over. My lizard brain just took over. I was ready to, like I said, do drastic sorts of things or be obnoxious or whatever, just because they were in my way and they weren't doing what they were supposed to do.
I'm feeling this, Doctor. I'm in the car with you, bro.
Yeah, I mean, again, this happens all the time. This is road rage. This is all the stuff that people talk about all the time, and this is what gets people in trouble. But this is a perfect example of really addictive behavior because I didn't get what I wanted at that moment, and basically, I really was angry. I was feeling impatient. I was, like I said, ready to do irrational sorts of things. But obviously, I got through it. I'm here. I didn't get arrested or anything like that. I didn't do anything bad. But the point is that this is what a trigger is to an alcoholic or an addict. In other words, all it takes is somebody to get in your way, whether it's an emotional sort of a thing. In other words, somebody can say something to you or look funny at you or whatever, and you're ready to drink or drug just because there was an emotional response that came out that turned you into, again, Mr. Hyde instead of Dr. Jekyll. And actually, there's a book on your shelf here in the office that talks about executive, let me see, it says, the complete guide to executive manners. And really, what 12-step recovery is, it's the executive guide to manners. Basically, it tells you how you're supposed to act even if you don't feel like acting that way. And again, older societies understood this perfectly. If you go to Britain, everybody acts very properly. But they don't act properly because they feel like acting properly. They just know that that's the way you're supposed to do things. And if you do it that way, then you don't get in trouble. And that's the way I see 12-step recovery with regard to things like patience or impatience or emotions or, again, like I said, people looking at you cross-eyed and you getting upset or whatever. I mean, everything just sort of takes off from that lizard brain trigger, and it only takes 1 second to trigger you, and you're in serious trouble.
Right. It is it's like click, something goes off.
There's person A and there's person B. And when you can be person A, you're all right, everything's okay, and then you flip into person B. And everybody does this. You don't have to be an addict to do this, obviously. Like I said, it happened to me this morning coming here.
But you didn't act on the thought. Chances are that my behavior would have changed along with that thinking.
But again, like I said, and what I'm trying to say is let's say I was really having a bad morning to start with or something like that. Something like that could be enough to make me relapse.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Oh, I've done it on less, but it seems to bring up all that aggravation that's stored. It's difficult to explain, but that's how it is for me and how it feels.
And one of my old therapists used to talk about how everything that you do or react to is really 2 or 3 feedback loops away from whatever it is. It's not really that truck going slow in front of me. It's really that something happened yesterday that aggravated me, and I'm really in a bad place emotionally and spiritually, and then all of a sudden this is sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, or the last nerve, you stepped on my last nerve kind of thing. And so that triggers you and takes you over the edge, and then you're out of control.
If I could I have a sponsor who told me one time, and I'd like to get your thoughts on it. He said, I've got some good news for you, Jerry, and some bad news. He said, the good news is you're very sensitive. The bad news is you're very sensitive, and I can understand both sides of it now. I couldn't then, but still to this day, and I will admit, it's easy to hurt my feelings.
Right.
Where it probably wouldn't maybe bother somebody else as much. And after all these years of recovery, that still exists.
Yeah, and see, again, this goes back to the whole thing of talking about the emotional system versus the logical system. See, again, if you're completely logical like Mr. Spock or something in Star Trek or something like that, you can be a Vulcan and people can tell you anything and, do anything, and you're not going to react emotionally. And that was why Mr. Spock was so popular in Star Trek,
right,
because we all wanted to be that way.
Right, yes.
It was perfect, and yet we're, as human beings, we're very vulnerable because we can't be that way. In other words, somebody can do something that will trigger us. We know it's going to get us in trouble, and then we're down this road that we didn't want to go down. I mean, how many times people, actually, I was talking to a guy at church today, and he was sort of confessing to me that he had gotten angry with somebody during the week, and they had words and all this sort of stuff.
Right.
And he was feeling full of shame and guilt and that sort of thing. And so now he's left with a bad feeling. There was a bad altercation. There was all this stuff, that has to be reconciled. Well, that's the life of the alcoholic addict.
Man.
It's nothing but you did this, and then you caused this, and then all kinds of stuff happens, and then everybody's angry and upset. And so everybody's constantly in turmoil because the lizard brain has basically taken over a situation instantly.
Let me give you an example of my own behavior and comment on this. I'll just give an example of work. Become very stressed, very angry, very, very anxious to try to solve the situation, to change this person, but not being able to do it and not being able to communicate my feelings. I could not articulate the way I was feeling. I would use alcohol, and it was like, I just loaded a gun.
Absolutely.
Because once the alcohol was in me, I could tell you exactly what I was feeling. And there was consequences for that,
right,
because that's what I did,
Right.
But at the time, I thought, you needed to hear this. You need to know this right now. You are wrong. And I now have this courage inside of me and this looking forward to be able to say it. And then the next day, oh my God, what have I done?
Right. Well, and see, if we deconstructed that, again, because you didn't have the courage or you were fearful of speaking frankly to somebody in a calm way, you had to get your artificial courage in the alcohol, and then that triggered your lizard mechanism,
right,
and then it all came out wrong.
Right.
And,
all of it wrong, all the time.
And so, again, back to, like I said, talking about the British being proper and that sort of thing. Again, like I said, they turn that into a cultural sort of a way of saying nasty things.
Through the British humor. Yeah.
But, they could do it, and they could do it with very calmly. I mean, they just stuck a knife in your heart, twisted it, and said, and you'd go, thank you very much.
All right, solutions. Now, you've been practicing medicine for 25, 30 years now.
That's right.
And I'm sure that many times, especially now as being a specialist, you've had patients who have come to you and said, Dr. Joe, I think I might be addicted to alcohol or drugs. What can you do to help me?
What we usually start as sort of the obvious sorts of things, like what have you done in the past? What sorts of things have you tried? Because it's not really very helpful to somebody to, the worst thing a doctor can ever tell a patient is, do this. And they go, oh, I've already done that. Well, let's try something else. It's important to find out where people are at in terms of their sobriety or what their history is or what most of the time, alcoholics and addicts are not stupid people. The thing of it is that they know they've got a problem, generally speaking. They know they've tried things. They know what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them. All these people who are in trouble, either with their families or with the law or with their jobs or with whatever, everybody that's looking at them can see from a mile away what's going on with them, but they can't see it. Like I've told you before on this program, addiction is a disease of the visual system. You can't see what's going on right in front of you. And our job, and the reason that I believe that we're on the air trying to help people is to help get people to see what's happening.
Man, that's perfect. And if we can achieve that, our goals will be met. Thank you very much. This is Trudge the Road from the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
You've been listening to Trudge the Road, brought to you by livefrogged.com, firmly relying on God's grace every day. That's livefrogged.com. Thanks for joining us, and check back next week at this same time on this great radio station for Trudge the Road on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.